into faith, family, fun.
Mm-hmm.
So if I distill down faith, family, fun, I mean, I could fit, fitness is part of joy, right? For me to be joyful, for me to be fulfilled, for me to feel good, fitness is a part of that, right? Finances, I think discipline comes from a deep understanding of faith and the gifts that you've been given. Stewardship comes from a deep understanding of faith and the gifts that you've received. And so yes, fitness is important. Finances are important. But yeah, there's we could.
Welcome to the Gentleman Success, Happiness, and Fulfillment Talk podcast, where we bring to you the most successful, happy, fulfilled gentlemen from around the world who have been able to conquer themselves, their life, their marriage, and their businesses. You will be learning from four-dimensional gentlemen who have cracked the code to the science of having it all. The question is, how can married entrepreneurs with kids become gentlemen, achieve true freedom, and build a successful, happy, and fulfilled life, marriage, and business? This show will give you the answer for that. My name is Alex Ramirez, and I'm your host, and you're welcome to the Gentleman Success, Happiness, Fulfillment Talk podcast. Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to another episode of the Gentleman Success, Happiness, and Fulfillment Talk podcast. As always, I have an incredible guest with us today, and I say that pretty often, but it's because it's always true. And today I want to ask everyone for a favor. I want to ask for you to, if you get something out of this interview, if you get some type of value, some type of insight, a skill, information, or the inspiration to go out and take action, to keep on moving forward towards your goals, I want to ask you to please share this episode with 10 friends. Share it on social media, share it on Facebook, Instagram, share the link on your stories. Share it with 10 friends, since this is how we grow. This is how we're able to motivate, inspire, and bless other people out there to change their lives. And today, I have Jordan Montgomery. He's the owner of Montgomery Companies. He's a highly regarded performance coach and keynote speaker whose clients include business executives, sales organizations, and entrepreneurs. And he's from a small town in Iowa to a dominant force in the performance coaching industry. Jordan travels the country speaking, coaching executives and at Fortune 500 companies, professional athletes, and salespeople. So performance, peak performance, being the best version of yourself, personal development is some of my favorite topics, right? Definitely some topics that I've been really diving deep into for the past 3 years. So Jordan, thank you very much for being here, man. I really appreciate your time, and you are welcome, man.
Hey, I appreciate being here, man. Alex, thanks for having me. I love your energy. And I cannot believe that you're 21 years old. Like, we just had a conversation offline, and I'm like, man, this is the most energetic, wise, established, and mature 21-year-old that I've ever spent time with. So love your, I know we're just getting to know each other, man, but I love the way you operate and the way you communicate. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, brother. So the first thing that I tell my guest, right, is to introduce themselves. I mean, to walk us through their entrepreneurial journey, not introduce yourself, to walk us through their entrepreneurial journey in 75 seconds or less.
75 seconds or less. Yeah, man, I'll tell you, I was the son of an entrepreneur, blue collar business owner. My father owned a little painting company, so he was in the construction industry. My mom was a teacher. I'd say the one thing I learned from my dad, I learned a lot from my dad, but the one thing I learned from my dad as it related to entrepreneurship is that controlling your calendar allowed you to live life by design. He was at all my games. My parents were at all my activities, sporting events. They were supportive. My dad was incredibly involved in my childhood experience. And so from a young age, I remember thinking, Alex, I want to control my time. And I didn't know what that meant as far as what business I would go into or industry I'd be involved in, but I just knew I wanted to control my time. I went to the University of Iowa. I got out of college and realized that I had no capital and no business knowledge. So I wanted to go into business for myself, but not by myself, which landed me a career in the financial services industry. So I did investments in insurance. I loved it. I had sort of a meteoric rise inside that company. At 25 years old, I took over an office. So I became a supervisor, a leader, and a financial planner. 27, I had a big fall from grace, which I'm sure I will share with you in our conversation, but really rocked my world, flipped it upside down. I learned a lot about myself, about leadership, about stewardship. But so often our deepest hurt becomes our greatest ministry. And for me, that fall from grace opened doors to a new business opportunity, which is coaching, speaking, and developing people. So that's what I do today. We're a team of 15. My wife and I run the business together. It's Montgomery Companies. I'm the owner. the big joke in our business, but it's quite often a reality, is that my wife runs the business and I run my mouth. And that's about how it works. So anyway, so that's, I don't know if I did 75 seconds. I think I was pretty close, but that's my short story.
You nailed it, man. And I also run my mouth every day, like every single day, all day. That's literally all I do. I like run my mouth.
It's good, man. It's good.
So yeah, it's definitely an interesting point. And actually, man, I got like my first, well, I've been an entrepreneur since, I was a little kid, but the first like real entrepreneurial, like, as an adult at 18 was into financial services. I got recruited by PHP, by like a network marketing company. And I actually crushed it because I wasn't selling insurance. I had a purpose, and my purpose was to help, Hispanic people from the middle and the lower income class on how to get out of a generational cycle of poverty and build wealth, right? And I like use my story and stuff like that. So yeah, so financial services, man, that's cool. So walk me through. So you had you stopped doing financial services at 25. So walk me through that experience.
Yeah, so I actually started at 22, and it was with a big Fortune 100 company. So right out of college, I'm young, I'm green. I don't really know anything about financial services, but I learned quickly. And like you, what I valued was the relationships. I valued the ability to spend time with people, to create relationships, to establish trust. And I became fairly good at that at a young age. Although I didn't know a lot about investments and insurance, I quickly learned. From 22 to 25, I was just focused on selling and planning and working with clients. And then at 25, I had an opportunity to run an organization, and then was fortunate to have success in that stage of business. So I was recruiting, developing talent. We grew an organization of 50 people. And I loved it. And then at 27, I had this sort of falling out and made a couple mistakes in business that would ultimately change and define my future. I had a supervisor call me April 1st, 2015. It was the craziest day of my life, the hardest day of my life. And at the time, Alex, I was running this organization. I was, doing sales, financial planning with clients. And I was speaking a lot corporately. So I was speaking to a different organization every week. I had a lot of influence. I was making a fairly substantial amount of money at a very young age. And I quickly went from the proverbial penthouse to like the outhouse almost overnight. I had a call from my managing partner. He said, "Hey, I need to talk to you." I was so naive. I was actually irritated at his request. I actually remember thinking like, I do not have time for this meeting today, this impromptu meeting that you want to have with me. And he said, "Well, Jordan, it's the type of meeting that you clear the calendar for. Like, this is really important." So I knew whatever it wasn't good. And I immediately thought, well, somebody on my team made a mistake. Now we're going to have to go fix it. I got to go talk to him about it. 2 hours later, I walked into his office and he said to me, "Jordan, you haven't done anything malicious or intentional, but you've been careless and casual. And when you're casual, you create casualties."
Mm.
And on that day, I was the casualty. There was a team member of mine who took a test on my behalf. It was an internal continuing education assignment. I didn't report it like I should have, and it cost me my job. It felt really unfair. It felt like a fairly minor infraction, but it was still grounds for termination. He had the right to do what he did. And it just sent me into this sort of spiral, Alex. My life went sideways. I was involved in a bunch of business deals that went sideways as a result of my employment status. Stood on the door of bankruptcy, literally from 30 days. Penthouse to the outhouse, lost all my money, lost my influence, lost my position. It was very public. The company sent out an email about my termination. And for a 27-year-old man that found all of his pride, all of his joy, all of his sense of self and security and his achievement, it just rocked me from the inside out. It's been said, if you live for their praise, you'll die by their criticism. And it crushed me because I had been living for those things. So there's a guy by the name of Tim Bohannon that steps into my life, helps me put my life back together. I think sometimes God does his best work in the valley. I know that you've been through a valley season or two in your life. So I learned a lot. I learned about stewardship, leadership, learned about myself, learned about faith, learned about the importance of family. And again, I stepped onto this path that opened doors to kind of a new life, new business opportunities. I was actually taken back by that same company but in a kind of a different role, different capacity. And so I had a lot to learn, man, but that was sort of my journey through financial services. I would say this: I couldn't do what I do today if it wasn't for all that I learned in that previous career. And ironically, today, our largest client is that same firm that let me go. So crazy. God is good, man. He writes the best stories, and that makes no sense at all, but I'm very fortunate to be where I'm at.
Yeah, man. And I want to make sure to like not breeze over the lesson, right? To like not breeze over and not extract the lesson that, you know, the story that you're telling, which I believe is, you know, getting clear on, so like you don't get what you want, right? You get who you are. So like, I believe that from the beginning, we got to ask like 3 questions. Where am I? Like, where do I want to be? And who must I become, right? And like becoming is something very important that you got to focus on doing, because like a future, like, you know, like a future based on like things and circumstances and stuff, you know, that can change, right? But like if you get clear on like what kind of future you want, right? I mean, your future can change, but if you get clear on like what type of person you can become that will take you towards that future, then everything becomes so very, very simple, because the circumstances in the future is not under your, you know, your power. Like they can change, right? But who you become is 100% under your power, and you can literally start becoming that person that will take you to that future today, right? And
well said.
And, yeah, and so right now you were saying that like you got your pride, your sense of self, right? You lived for praise, and now you're dying by criticism, right? So actually, man, I didn't start making, like, for the past 3 years, I've been like stuck, right? You know, making a decent amount of money, but like not anything big. And I've been like stuck, just jumping from one thing to another, just trying to find my thing and not finding it and failing, right? And I finally made something work this year. But it was great, because if I had made work my business, if I had made the financial freedom work at the beginning, I would have gotten my sense of self from that. I would have gotten my sense of my pride, my sense of self-worth from that. And then I would have neglected all of the other areas of my life, my physical freedom, myself, my emotional freedom, being a husband and a father, because I would have been making money, and I would be like, yeah, let me just focus on that, because that's what's feeding me, right? But because I didn't make, you know, like a lot of money from the beginning, I had to, like, I was literally forced to get clear on who I wanted to be. I was forced to get clear on like what success, happiness, and fulfillment meant for me. And that evolved the other aspects of my life. So I was literally forced to work on the other aspects of my life. And now that the money is finally working, I have it all, right? And I'm a modern gentleman. So getting clear on who you want to be instead of the things that you want is like the lesson that I think we can extract from the story that you just told, that we shouldn't breeze over, right? So yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you said something powerful there, Alex. And to summarize, I would say it's prioritizing who before what.
Okay.
I see a lot of young leaders, a lot of emerging leaders who are prioritizing the what before the who. They're thinking about what they want to accomplish before they think about who they want to become. So I think who has to come before what. In all stages of life, we got to think about, who am I becoming, and how is that driving what I want to accomplish? As a young person, I was thinking about, okay, here's what I want to accomplish, and I'll just sort of let that determine who I become. A different way to say that would be, when your goals are set before your values, your goals can take you to a place that you never intended to go. And that was my story. I was really clear about my goals. I wasn't as clear about my values. And it led me to this place where I was sort of underdeveloped and overexposed. I had some authority, I had some influence, I had responsibility, but I hadn't really worked on my character. I didn't really understand who I was. And as a result, I was underdeveloped. And when you're underdeveloped and overexposed, you might get a seat at the table, but you're not prepared to stay at the table.
Yeah.
And so eventually I got excused from the table, right? That proverbial sort of leadership table. I couldn't stay. My character wasn't keeping pace with my responsibility. So I think it's really what you're saying is an issue of character. Young leaders ask all the time, you know, I get this question, maybe you get this question. Somebody says, well, Jordan, what should I work on? If I could work on one thing, what should it be? What should I focus on as a young leader? And I say to every young leader that the one thing you should focus on and pay attention to is your character and growing your character. Because your character is not just what gets you to the table, it's what keeps you there. Mike Todd said it this way. senior leaders might be impressed with your giftedness, but they become comfortable with your character. So if you want to get promoted, if you want to go to the next level, if you want to win favor with people, focus on your character, focus on who you are, focus on being a person of integrity. And you got to do that in the dark, right? You can't Instagram integrity. You can't Facebook faithfulness. Like, you have to do that work on your own in the quiet hours. I think it's discipline. I think it's intentionality. I think it's humility. I mean, those are building blocks of character. So everything that you just said, man, to me, it gets back to character. Character is more important than your charisma. It's more important than your competency. It's more important than your chemistry. Work on your character. And I love how Mike Todd sort of unpacks that, because that was me, man. I was a young leader who wasn't working hard enough on my character, and I was prioritizing the what before the who.
That was powerful, man. So I want to ask you two things, right? I want to ask you, all right, so what did you change to become like an actual leader, like a strong leader with a strong character? I want to ask you that, but before, what I would like you to answer is, would you mind sharing your core values? Like your values?
I'd love to. Yep.
Is this word like that? It's like, it's thrown around, right? A lot, but like most people don't have core values, or they hear it and they're like, oh yeah, cool. Like core values, but they don't have them, right? So can you share them?
Yeah, mine are really simple, man. It's faith, family, fun. It starts with faith. God the Father, he's the reason I live. He gave me life. I want to honor him in all that I do and bring glory to his name and share him with the world, because he's entrusted me to lead and given me a platform to share. I think he's given all of us that opportunity. Family, I want to be respected most by people who know me the best. If I have adoration and praise from people that don't know me that well, I guess that's fine, but it doesn't really mean much. I want to be respected by my daughters, my wife, my closest friends. If I forsake those relationships, but I gain favor with the world, to me, that's a pretty empty life. So family and faith are 1 and 2, and then fun, man. I want to live a life with great joy and enthusiasm. I want to wake up and be excited about the day in front of me, about the people that I get to connect with and serve and learn from. So I want to live a life of purpose, but
Sorry for the interruption. If you're an aspiring, established coach, course creator, author, and speaker, I want to extend an invitation to check out my free training on the podcast Cloak Track Framework by clicking on the link in the description of this podcast. On this training, you're going to learn how combining podcasting with a rare concept that very few people know about called the Cloak Track can help you build a multi-million-dollar network of successful people who can become your clients, put you in front of hundreds of your ideal clients with your message, coaching, courses, and books, help you become a best-selling author, get you booked to speak on stages, or even making an extra $237,600 in the next 6 months. Click on the link of the description of this podcast to learn about the 4 simple steps to make this work. Step number 1 is alignment. Aligning who you're trying to be, what you're trying to do, your goals and purpose with building your podcast so that podcasting is a vehicle that helps you achieve your goals. Step number 2 is leveraging the Cloak Track to find an unlimited supply of your ideal podcast guest. Step number 3 is leveraging the Cloak Track to close an interview with anyone, no matter how rich, famous, or out of your league they may seem. And step number 4 is the content machine, which is the key to tapping into other people's audiences. These are the 4 steps to making the podcast Cloak Track Framework work, and I'm not going to hold anything back on this training. So click on the link in the description of this podcast, go and check it out. And once you've done that, if you feel like this would help, we also have a complimentary, free, absolutely free alignment call to get you started and show you exactly how to implement everything. Get access to the training right now, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this episode. Bye-bye.
I want to do it in a way that brings other people joy and where I can experience joy. So for me, it's faith, family, and fun.
Cool. I like that. So now, yeah, faith, family, fun. What about finance and fitness?
You can keep going, right? But here's what I'd say about that. I think I could fit finance and fitness into faith, family, fun. Mm-hmm. So if I distill down faith, family, fun, I mean, I could fit, fitness is part of joy, right? For me to be joyful, for me to be fulfilled, for me to feel good, fitness is a part of that, right? Finances, I think discipline comes from a deep understanding of faith and the gifts that you've been given. Stewardship comes from a deep understanding of faith and the gifts that you've received. And so yes, fitness is important. Finances are important. but yeah, there's a, we could go long on that list of things that are important to me. But if you're talking about the 3 core values in my life, it's faith, family, fun.
Nice. All right. Awesome. So, man, I really liked that, you can get a seat at the table, right? If you like perform well, right? But then if you don't have a strong character, then you're not gonna get to keep the seat at the table. Like eventually, you're like not lack of competence, but like your lack of, what would you call it, will come out to the surface, and then you'll lose the seat at the table. So what did you do to like become an actual, strong character leader, and now like make your own table?
Well, I think I'm still learning. I think part of staying at the table is keeping an open mind.
Okay.
The Bible says that God will oppose the proud and give favor to the humble, and I don't ever want to be too proud. I think in my early leadership journey, I was a proud person. A proud person is seldom a grateful person. And so I think I've found myself being more grateful, operating with a bit more humility. Some of that is I went through an experience, right, that was really traumatic and difficult. And so I just learned, like, wow, the ways of the world are fleeting and things can be given and taken away. And so I think I've started to operate with a little more humility. I've started to ask more questions, to get feedback. I've started to receive coaching and instruction and counsel from other wise people. So I think I've just got a different posture, Alex, than I used to have. I used to think, oh man, I've got it figured out and I'm sharp and I'm a hardworking person who has the answers. And but what was inside of me was pride and ego. So I think you're positioned to stay at the table when you're operating without pride, without ego, with a sense of humility and a willingness to learn from the people around you. And not just like wise leaders with experience, but from all people. I believe you can learn something from any person you interact with, from any situation that you're in. John Wooden said it this way. It's what you learn after you know it all that counts. I mean, so the leaders that I really respect and look up to, they're not just learning from other leaders. They're learning from all people. They're learning from emerging leaders, from young people, because they realize that every person has a different perspective, and different in today's culture is valuable. I want to learn from people who are different. They got a different perspective, a different way of looking at things. They come from a different background. If I'm going to be a well-educated leader of people, I need to understand different types of people. And so I think those are all just things that I'm continuing to learn about leadership. If you're asking me, how did you change, or how are you changing? Those are things that I think God is working inside of me.
Nice. So apart from like my 3 things is like in order, right? Faith, which is myself basically, family, and finance, right? Like, I value those things as well in that order. But then like my core values, the values that I'm using to like build my company and that I try to live by every single day are respect, humility, and wisdom. Right. So like I try to like be respectful and be humble, and like I seek wisdom. That's literally all I ask for every single day, wisdom. And then motivate, inspire, and bless. That's what I live for. Like, and you motivate, like so anyone can be a motivation, right? Like if you see someone that's jacked and they're a motivation, but they won't inspire you if they're like assholes. Like if they're like, I'm jacked and you're weak, right? That would inspire you. Or if you see someone that's rich, he's going to be a motivation, but he won't inspire you if he's like, I'm rich and you're poor, right? So the way to motivate, inspire, and bless is by doing it from a place of love, from a place of respect, humility, and wisdom, right? So if you do that, if you're an example, if you lead by example, you're a motivation. If you do it from a place of love, respect, humility, and wisdom, you inspire people. And when you do those 2, you bless them and you change their lives, right? And they're never going to come back to do the same. So humility, right? So you're talking about, I really like that, man. So like you were full of, you had ego. You were operating from ego and pride. But then instead you got humble and you got open-minded, and you started to like, you willingness to learn from people increase, which is like 3 things that are super important. So like, how did you become aware of this, man? Like, and how do you like, what's humility for you? 2 big questions, right? But yeah, like I just want to I just want to keep on
Well,
like sharpening my saw.
I say it this way. If you want to increase your awareness, you got to start having real conversations with people that know you well.
Okay.
And people that can give you real honest feedback. So I think I used to try to surround myself with people who would just tell me the good stuff, who were impressed with something that I had done or accomplished. But then, man, you really want to grow in your awareness, get around some people that aren't impressed by you. They love you for you. They care about you. They're willing to be truthful and honest with you and ask them for feedback. Like, where do I need to grow? What am I missing? What are my blind spots? What do I need to learn? Where am I falling short in my leadership? Those aren't fun questions to ask, but I think, Alex, the average person is not getting enough feedback. The average business leader, the average modern gentleman is not getting enough feedback on who they are, how they're showing up, what they're doing, how they're operating, how they're behaving. And there's a book out right now. I'll give a shout out to John Maxwell. He wrote this book called The Self-Aware Leader.
Cool.
And here's what Maxwell says about people in general. He said, the first lesson I learned in coaching people is that people have a very difficult time seeing themselves and a very easy time seeing everybody else.
Yeah.
In other words, I can point out other people's blind spots pretty easily, but I really struggle to see my own. And in the same way, I could point out other people's gifts and the areas where they're skilled or really talented, but sometimes I struggle to understand and see my own gifts. And so back to this question of awareness, if you want to grow in awareness, or you're asking me, hey, how did you become more aware? Well, number one is I went through some adversity. But number two is I started asking more questions. I started getting more feedback. It's amazing how much you can learn when you pause and you listen instead of talk. And I love to talk, right? You talk for a living. I talk for a living. So I had to learn to be quiet. I had to learn to shut my mouth. I had to learn to listen. I had to learn to ask more questions. And that's been a big part of my journey in awareness. And I haven't arrived. I'm obviously still learning. I got to continue to ask more questions. Feedback is the breakfast of champions. We got to keep asking.
I love that. Feedback is the breakfast of champions. Pause. Like in entrepreneurs, like most entrepreneurs need this habit, right? Like they're just going. They're trained to just go. It's been made to be seen as school, to just go and do, right? But like pausing and thinking and questioning, right, is very important. So great points. I just wanted to make sure to not breeze over that. And we have a couple of minutes, man. And I end up my interviews asking 5 questions. So, I want to make sure to leave time for those 5 questions, as well as ask you about one more thing, which is about relationship building, right? I know that you're like a master networker. You are big into building relationships. Right now, we talked about, like how different people we have very different perspectives, and like relationships is this thing, like, I don't know, man, but out of the 4 freedoms, right? Physical freedom, emotional freedom, sentimental freedom, which is relationships with your husband as a husband and father, and then financial freedom. I think that the hardest one, well, the most important one is the emotional freedom, because if you don't control yourself emotionally, right, you can't do good in any of them. But then in order to make money, you got to do the emotional freedom. And then once you have the money and once you have everything, I think that the hardest one to maintain is the sentimental freedom, because like in relationships, like you can literally experience something. And if there's more people there experiencing the same thing, like they probably have had different experiences. And like the dynamics of like the other day we were at the car and my daughter was crying. My wife was mad and I was happy, and like out of the same experience. And I was like, holy, like, yeah, like it's a very complicated thing, right? So I don't know what to ask, honestly, but maybe I just want to ask you, like, what are some of your insights, some of your like takeaways on like relationship building relationships and like networking?
Yeah, well, I think number one, you got to be more interested than interesting. So you got to be genuinely curious in people. You got to ask great questions. You got to let other people talk. I had a conversation with a young physician the other day, 2-hour conversation. She talked almost the entire time. At the end of the conversation, she says, Jordan, you're one of the most interesting people I've ever met. And I didn't say anything, I just listened. And so people want to be heard. I think a person's favorite sound is their own name. Their favorite topic is themselves. We got to let people talk. When we listen to people communicate, how many times has somebody said, I wish that person would keep talking. I wish they would go longer.
Never.
Versus, it doesn't happen, right? People are always like, hey, I wish the pastor would preach shorter. I wish that speaker would be done earlier. Even when we like them, even when we enjoy what they're saying, like we're still, and the reason that's true is people are more focused on themselves than anybody else in the world. And so that's just a basic truth of being human. So we got to let people talk. We got to be more interested than interesting. We got to ask more questions. We have to be you focused instead of me focused in our communication style. And I think we also have to be coachable instead of teachable. A teachable person is concerned with the moment and the content. A coachable person is concerned with the future and the relationship. So if you want to be a relationship person, you want to be oriented around relationships, pursue people. Don't pursue a moment. Don't pursue content. You hear a podcast and you like what was on that podcast, reach out to that person and tell them, hey, here's what I learned on your podcast. There's 3 things that you taught me. I've been implementing those 3 things. I'm reaching out to say thank you. I appreciate your wisdom. I'd love to spend more time with you. I'd love to add value to you. I'd love to be a part of your world. How could I add more value to you? How could I spend time with you? That's a coachable person. And that's where you're really going to learn is through the relationship, is through the future. It's not in the moment. It's not to the content. So those would be a few keys, some principles that we coach on and talk about in the context of relationship building.
Okay. Cool, man. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And I have one question before asking the 5 questions that I always end my interviews with. I have one question for you that I'm just curious to know, like selfishly. And it's your company, which is Montgomery Companies. Do you like have ownership in other people's companies? Like, do you coach them on how to grow them and then have take a small piece from them?
Yeah, we have 15 coaching partners. So they work sort of under us as independent contractors.
Okay.
And our company, we specialize in organizational health and leadership development. All of those coaches represent that brand, but work with individual clients, organizational clients, do a mix of coaching, speaking, consulting work. Some of them will take, 5 clients over the course of a year. Some will take 15 to 20. Just depends on who that person is, what their skill set is, and ultimately the needs that are present with the people reaching out. So that's sort of how we're structured. But it's all in the context of leadership development, organizational health.
Organizational health, leadership development. You don't know what you don't know. And I didn't even know these things were the thing. So I'm going to write them down. Leadership. Awesome. Awesome, man. Well, the first question, Jordan, is what advice would you give your 20-year-old self if you could?
Yeah. Ask more questions. Be more interested than interesting. Fail more. If you're not failing, you're probably not moving forward. Take more risk. Take messy action. Done is better than perfect. Build the plane as you fly it. Those are all mantras. Those are things that I wish I could go back and tell my 20-year-old self.
And not only like hear them, but actually implement them, right?
Yeah, take action. That's right. Yep. Yeah.
Awesome. The second question, Jordan, is a mindset. So what is one mindset shift and that you've had that you think is contributing to your success right now?
I'll say it this way. What comes into your mind comes out in your life. So whatever you put into your mind comes out in your life. If you read junk, you'll get junk. If you listen to junk, you'll get junk. You watch junk, you'll live junk. And so I just think I've become a lot more aware of my environment. People spend so much time on the mental game. A mindset gets a lot of attention. So the mental game gets a lot of attention. People forget it's the environmental game that drives the mental game. So you really want to improve your mental game. You got to consider your environmental game. Start spending time on your friends, your networks, the books you read, the podcasts you listen to, the stuff that comes into your environment, because your environmental game is driving your mental game.
Love that. Mindset map. Do you have any advice for people who may lack or need clarity?
Yeah. Read a book called The Vision Driven Leader by Michael Hyatt. It's an awesome book on gaining clarity. Have a vision, have a design statement. Yeah. Vision Driven Leader by Michael Hyatt. Michael says this: it's not a vision if it's not written down. Most people struggle with clarity because they don't have anything in writing. So get it in writing. Put a 3 to 5 page design statement together. if you check out the book Vision Driven Leader, it'll help you understand how to do that. I'll leave it at that just for the sake of time.
Got it. Awesome, bro. Mindset map motion. What is one habit that you have, Jordan, that you think is contributing to your success?
This is going to sound really simple, but it's going to bed at a decent time. Everybody talks about waking up early. That's like the sexy thing in personal development, but you can't wake up early. You don't go to bed early. So we wake up really early in my house, but it's because we go to bed early. So it's amazing. Going to bed early and getting the right amount of rest changes every area of your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
what time do you go to sleep?
9:00. We're lights out by 9.
Me too.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Early. Kind of lame, kind of boring answer, Alex, but I'm just giving you the truth.
The truth. Yeah. I go to sleep at 9 a.m. as well.
Yeah.
9 p.m. So, but then I'm up by 4 a.m. ready to go, with 7 hours of sleep at least. If for some reason I have to go to sleep at 11, I wake up later. Like I'm not willing to sacrifice my sleep anymore.
Got to get your sleep. Let's go.
The last question is measure. What do you think about measuring and tracking, Jordan?
Measuring and tracking. I think, what gets measured gets done. I think you got to understand where you've been and where you're going, which requires you to have systems and processes. And I think you can delegate a lot, but I think you got to be in charge of the systems and processes that get created so that you can delegate. So we track and measure a lot. We're a data-driven company. I love data. And I think you got to track all areas of your life, all those areas that we talked about, Alex.
Nice.
So, and man, let me just say before we sign off, I've just enjoyed spending time with you, bro. You're a wise 21-year-old and you got a really bright future. So thank you for having me.
Things, man. So if people want to know more about you, where should they find you? Where should they go?
Yeah. Jordan M. Montgomery on Instagram. I do a lot on Instagram, a lot through LinkedIn, Facebook. We're on all the social media channels. Our website is montgomerycompanies.com. Check us out. Throw me a message. Send me an email, jordan@montgomerycompanies.com. Send me an email. Send me a direct message on a social media channel. Let me know that you listened to this episode. I'd love to help out and be a listening ear to anybody who's with us today.
Thanks, brother. So take care, man. Have an awesome rest of your day and have a great week. All right.
Appreciate you, Alex. Be well. Thanks for having me on. Keep being you.
Thank you for watching the Gentleman's Success, Happiness, and Fulfillment Talk podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with one friend, leave us a comment, and let us know. 99% of people never leave a review or comment, but we love and are very thankful with the 1% of you who do. If there's something or someone you want to see on this podcast, send me a message on Instagram at Alex_Ramirez1020 and let me know. As a thank you for that, I have an amazing surprise for each and every one of you who does take the time to leave us a comment or review on YouTube or one of the major podcasting platforms